Hi, and welcome to episode one of the the SME Data Vodcast. I am Helen Ward, part of the Data Cube team, and I'm delighted to have here with me Matt Dent. Matt, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me, Helen, and everyone for joining us today. I am Matt Dent, and I am the BI consultant here at DataCubed. So I kind of head up, run, take charge of all business intelligence that comes through DataCubed, and kind of analytics as well. So I'm from a very analytics background, and recently, in the last few years, more specialized in those kind of automated reporting systems, dashboards, but still take care of any analytics projects that our clients want to uncover.
Cool, thanks for that. So I'm going to challenge you from an SME perspective and have a think about how businesses can make better use of their data, and obviously focusing today a little bit more around visualization.
Nice.
So tell me, SMEs, they have resource that's quite stretched. They have data sources in their business, but how on earth do they start making value from that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's big variation depending on which company they are. But so some are using their data quite well, whereas others are really starting from kind of scratch. So yeah, where do you start in that kind of maze of data is a good question, I think, Helen. I think you've got to start with kind of your business owners. What data? What do you need answers about that you don't? I think generally that normally starts with kind of finance data. So let's say we're already halfway through 2021. Now, how much money have we spent so far as data? What are our expenses? And how does that kind of split out by different expense types or products or different channels? Because you need to know how much money you're spending to run a sustainable business. And sort of conversely to that, how much money are you getting in? So what are my incomes, wherever they come from? What type of income is it? Is it recurring sort of retainer income, or is it kind of one-offs? And how is that split out by my different clients? And once you've got those incomes and you've got those expenses or your outgoings, you can then start to understand your kind of net incomes and your ROIs and your kind of incomes per head count of your staff. And so you're getting a good picture of kind of the running of your business and how economically viable it is, how you're doing, how your profits or your losses. And then you can just understand those kind of really important, but kind of quite basic sort of key performance indicators. I think that's a good place for sort of any SME to start is finance.
Cool. Okay. And then what are the most common questions you get asked by businesses?
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to their data again and what type of business they're like. But I think it's all about how can it's obviously as a kind of BI and reporting specialist, I'm not going to so much help them to win more work or grow clients. So it's more from me is how can we be more efficient? How can we save more money? How can we limit our expenses? So what processes can we automate internally? How can we better allocate our resource? What can people be doing to save time and money? And so it will save us money, and also the members of staff that are doing sort of potentially doing reporting or analytics internally where it's not really their job or it's not really what they want to be doing. So it will save the company time, save the company money, and the people that are doing it can concentrate on doing things that they'd rather do and they're probably better at as well.
Yeah. And who's normally involved in those? So obviously, business decision makers, they come to you with those challenges and they want to sort of get the ball moving. Who in the business should be involved?
Yeah, I think it depends who's using any sort of reporting system, because that's generally the output. Yeah, they've got lots of different data sources. They might have finance data, marketing data, operations data, depending on the business, lots and lots of different data sources, probably tens of data sources. So usually the whole point in working with an data agency or trying to sort out your data is to have some sort of output so you know what's happening. So normally those stakeholders that we'd engage with would be people that are using those reports, those dashboards. And often that's quite a senior level or or kind of area managers or sort of team managers. So just say it was a finance dashboard, as we spoke about finance before, you might be quite involved with the CFO or a finance manager, because we'll try and understand what those data sources are, but we'll need to kind of gauge what do you actually need to see and what do you want to see, and try and slim it down to just the really important bits of information.
Sure.
But obviously you have to work with them a little bit in a relationship to make sure that the data seems sensible. So, okay, did you spend £1 million last year on this? And is that sensible? They'll be like, yeah, that's fine, or that's not right. And we also want to know kind of what they want to see visually in a kind of design theme. Obviously it needs to be on brand guidelines and visually. And that's kind of your job as a BI consultant developer. So there needs to be some interactions with the kind of key stakeholders, but we try and take as much of that kind of strain off the client and try and do it kind of as independently as possible to save them even more time during the kind of process of building up this kind of data environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about budget then? So how would you sort of approach it with budget in mind?
Yeah, this is a tricky question.
Something on the mind of many business owners at the moment, I think, is the best return on their investments. I'm just wondering how that works in the world of data for you.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, it's a tricky time, but it's probably even more an important time to have these operations running as efficient as possible. So I'd say, looking at your kind of operations data is really important to see how efficient you really are. If you don't know that now, then if I was a kind of business owner, I'd be quite worried if I didn't know exactly how efficient I am working and how looking at all my costs and trying to kind of slim down those costs as much as possible. Trying to drive, just say you're a B2C company, you're trying to drive as many sales as possible, but if you could really kind of cut back on costs and efficiencies and all your processes are automated as possible. Automation is a really key word at the moment, I think, and a great place for a lot of SMEs and businesses to start on, to think about how many manual processes are we doing at the moment, which could be completely automated and really release that time that those people are doing to do things that are much more efficient and cost effective to business.
Great. And obviously you're an expert in those visualizations. So what do you like to see?
What do I like to see? I think I like to see simple. I think it's so easy, especially for companies or people starting out in that kind of realm, is to think, wow, look how cool that looks. And let's have all these flow charts and Sankey diagrams and all this because they look really cool or they look kind of complicated. So it looks like I know what I'm doing. But actually, when I present this to stakeholder, are they going to look at it and go, yeah, I get it, I understand what's happening? Or are they going to have to go, wait, I need to follow this line like along the screen and then work out and then you kind of lose faith and you lose trust. And if things take too long, it's like you lose a bit of trust in the data and the reporting. So I think when I do kind of like these webinar talks on visualization, my word is think Apple. So if you think the brand Apple, think how clean and simple it is. If you go on their website and you wanted to buy a phone, you'd probably only take a few clicks to actually be able to navigate to the phone that you potentially wanted to then buy. And it would be a nice journey and it'd be obvious. And you wouldn't need a guide or any documentation or someone to teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
It would just be like, that's the number I'm looking for. I know that my ROI this year is 2.5 because it's just there. It's obvious. I don't have to like trawl around trying to find it. So keep it clean, simple, and then that's effective. And in terms of design, always the clean, simple designs actually are visually more appealing as well.
Clean and simple. Got it.
Yeah.
So examples of how not to do it then?
Yeah, I think, just converse to that. So clutter. Clutter, so trying to jam as many things as possible onto your page. Not having things laid out in nice grids. So it's kind of all over the place. Things don't line up. The design for a lot of people and visualization seems like it's kind of the addition. So like, let's go up. Yeah, it's imperative that your data is right. If your data is wrong and you're looking at the wrong numbers, then it means nothing. But if you present your stakeholders or the CEO with a report that looks rubbish, they're going to lose trust, and sort of the repetitive use of trying to develop that kind of data culture of people using those reports it's just not going to happen. If things take ages to load or it looks rubbish, then people aren't interested. So keep it clean, simple, nice grids, simple. It's obvious what everything is, as minimal kind of words and documentation as possible. But in a kind of and it's quite a hard kind of balance to really get right. And that's kind of what takes experience helps with that over time. But yeah, just keep it simple. Don't clutter. Don't try and put. So the number one question is, do you need this here? Or could we just get rid of it? Because if you don't use it, then it's just adding to the confusion. So keep it as simple as possible is kind of the key takeaway.
Great. And I guess the more simplicity, the more people will use it, the more it gets used, the more valuable it is.
Absolutely.
For sure. Okay. So putting it into practice then, obviously the clients that you've worked with, the experience you've had, can you give me one example and share with the audience around what would make a great example of delivering business benefit using data?
Yeah, I can think of a good example from kind of the start of this year. I won't name drop. But it's just that kind of classic case of someone in the business who's probably quite high up and their time is quite valuable, both to themselves and the business, is spending days of time every month trying to create a report so they can understand how their team's doing, and then they can deliver that up to a CEO or the board. So taking away all that strain is key. So they don't have to think about that extra report that they have to cram in, which is going to take them 3, maybe even a week worth of time every single month, which is so expensive. So automating that process. So I'm thinking of a company that we worked with at DataCubes at the start of the year who were doing this every month. We created a kind of live dashboard for them. So the data is constantly being updated. It's coming from a few different sources, so they can understand exactly what people are doing on their website, and they can understand exactly what people are doing kind of from a finance point of view. They can see how those two different elements interact with each other. It's working with the CEO, so quite high level, and he checks that multiple times a day now, but has zero input into having to create anything or get those numbers sorted out. It's just there, refreshed. I can check in whenever I want and see how we're doing. And it's gone from spending days and days, months, to zero time, and always trusting the reliable, clean design of data that they have.
Yeah. And how do they make sure they can trust that data? What processes are behind that to make sure it's, they can rely on it?
Yeah, and I think that's the key kind of relationship you build when you're first building it up is really key to understanding exactly what they want to be seeing, and any sort of niche filters or anything they're doing to kind of get the numbers that they specifically want to see nailed from the off is really important around that trust. We'll obviously put some data checks in behind the scenes. So if you suddenly had £1 million of income in a day, we can build those things in to sort of send questionable kind of alerts out to say, is this right? Is there something wrong here? Those sort of things can be built in and automated and send out alerts, and which is quite powerful. I think with that, in case of that kind of example that we're talking about a minute ago, because he's using it so often, it would be really easy for him to notice anything that's changing that kind of looks off or looks right, and then it's easy for him to then sort of drill down and understand the kind of drivers that are populating everything.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So I think that the next sort of question of mine is around tools. What tools are great to use for achieving this sort of output?
I think start simple. Lots of companies use Excel. And it's actually a great place to learn how data works, how you can kind of manipulate it on kind of small scale, how you need to transform it to build the kind of charts you want to build. And the kind of any formulas that you kind of write in Excel, that knowledge is kind of transposable into, if you then learn how to write some scripting in SQL or SQL, or how to write DAX in Power BI, or how to use the created fields in Tableau or something like that. Building that kind of knowledge base in something simple first is actually really important, and it's really easy to use. And generally, that's still kind of a manual process thing. Most people use Excel in a very manual way, and you can kind of automate some things and link it up with databases. But it's always a good place to learn. And then if you wanted to sort of progress, you could stay with Microsoft and go down maybe the Power BI route. It's not necessarily the best tool for every use case. If budget was on mind and it wanted to be completely free, Google's offering with Data Studio is like quite decent for creating some pretty simple but powerful reports. You can embed them into web pages, easy to share. So they're good places to start, is to build that kind of data knowledge. You can't really go wrong with Excel. If you wanted to automate a bit more, learn some SQL, SQL. If you want a budget and you want to do some reporting, maybe Google Data Studio is a good place to look.
Cool, thank you. So I'm thinking now the biggest data challenge that faces businesses in the next sort of 12 months. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just, well, who knows what's going to happen in the next kind of 12 months, I guess. But I guess it's now is the time to really
We won't hold you to it or anything.
Now's the time to really understand your data. It's where the margins are so small between kind of your incomes and your outgoings. And I think if I was a business owner in this time and I had questions about my business, whether it be operational or financial or marketing or sales, and I didn't know the answer, I'd be a bit concerned. So I think whatever you don't know about your company and you feel like you should know, then that's where you start, really, I think. And just in the next 12 months, it's all going to be about efficiencies, I think. Keeping your sales high, how can we improve on those? Keeping your costs low, how can you improve on keeping your costs low or getting smaller? Just that kind of efficiency balance, that net, is really important. So if there's anything you don't know about your business that you feel like you should, I feel like now is the time to really get that all kind of ironed out.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of covers itself in an opportunity and a challenge. That the challenge is if you don't know the answers to those questions, but similarly, it's your opportunity to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Cool. Thanks for your time, Matt. Really enjoyed speaking to you about data viz.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the invite.